Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome at this next McAdemy at Home webinar. Today we are going to talk about intelligent planning, or to say in SAP terms, IBP explained, from APO to IBP. And I want to start off to say that planning is more than just implementing a tool. And our experts, Walter and Jeroen, will tell you all about that in the next hour. But I want to emphasize that, in my opinion, planning is very important to either increase your revenue as a company or to cut costs as a company. And it's all about people, process, and platform. Those are the three main components to be successful with planning. Today we are going to show you a lot about the tooling, but also the business benefits of this platform. And I urge you to stay till the end, because in the end we will have a very interesting special offer for everybody in this meeting, as we offer a very good package to start small with integrated business planning of SAP. I'm not sure if you can see the slides. Anna, can you make sure that we share the slides? Yep, there we go.
Yep.
And this is my slide that I would like to share with you. This is, if you have any questions, you have been muted, but you can ask the questions in the tool, in the GoToMeeting, in the GoToWebinar tool, and the moderator, Anna, will process these questions and ask them to the presenters of choice. So please send your questions through the Q&A or questions bar on the right of the tool. Without further ado, I would like to give the word to Jeroen van Tol and wish you all a very pleasant webinar.
So yes, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining our first meeting on IBP, and the theme for today is APO Explained. It's a brief introduction in IBP. My name is Jeroen van Tol. I'm one of the supply chain consultants at McCoy & Partners, and together with my colleague Walter, he will present himself in a minute, we will give you an overview, and our agenda for today is the following. We will first start with S&OP. Why S&OP? What are the challenges we are facing in S&OP? Then we take a minute to discuss why we should use S&OP. We will discuss the move from APO to IBP and how this is positioned within the whole SAP landscape and supply chain planning. Next, we will deep dive into IBP and how intelligent planning, IBP, and McCoy, of course, can help you achieve better supply chain performance. Finally, we'll do a high-level demonstration. Walter will show a part on how inventory optimization can help you optimize your stocks, your safety stocks. And afterwards, I will take over and explain a little bit about S&OP and how this is covered within IBP. Finally, we will talk a little bit about our vision on the implementation approach, and there is, of course, some time for the Q&A at the end. Maybe Walter, you can briefly introduce yourself before we kick off.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Walter. I started in SAP in 2008 as a manufacturing consultant, doing mainly shop floor projects. But then after 2 years, I switched to APO, and I did several implementations in PPDS, demand planning, supply network planning, global ATP, and even a bit TPVS. Then I switched for 1 year to collaborate with the main competitor of SAP in planning. But then quickly I came back and I started to discover IBP. So in the last year, I'm really working on IBP, mainly on the inventory optimization part.
Great, thank you very much. So before we kick off, challenges we are facing current days in S&OP. Of course, we all know the current situation in the world, which makes supply chain even more complex than they already were, probably. But questions we do receive a lot outside of from our clients and in the market is, how can I shorten my S&OP cycle? Because what we do see is that a lot of time is now spent on gathering information, combining information from different systems to get a correct view on your supply chain. Another question you do receive a lot is, how do you connect your planning with your execution? Because it seems siloed, but of course it's absolutely integrated. So this is something you would like to achieve as well. You would also like to see how you can simulate assumption and decisions. The markets are changing. How can I react quickly to demand, supply changes, capacity issues I have in my network? How can I manage this? Another topic, and Walter will briefly or deeply dive into that after later in this presentation, is how do I manage my safety stocks? But also another question is, how can I make all this volume related information also in a combination with finance? Because I would also like to see a financial view on my information. And of course, you always want to have the correct information at the right level and talk about the same numbers, have this single source of truth within your company. Some of you might know Gartner. I guess everybody knows Gartner, but Gartner defined a maturity model of supply chain management. What you see is that a lot of companies are now going towards the third level. In the beginning, you have no goals, that's the starting point. Then you start with an operational volume plan, so you just be capable of planning your volumes within your company. But at the third stage, and that's where the box comes in, technology will be required. In the first stage, you will try to balance your demand and supply really from an end-to-end perspective. So on the left side, you see that your mindset will change from there, because you will think from the outside in. You will have to think from your customer demand and how am I going to fulfill this from a supply chain perspective. Later, you want to grow to stage 4, because you don't only want to combine volume and value, but you want to be more profitable. And to do that, you need more advanced software, you need more advanced tooling to really get the benefits and to have a system to support you to calculate the an optimized supply chain plan. Finally, if you're really further advanced, you will go to the 5th stage, where you really get an orchestrated supply chain where everybody is aligned and you have the optimal balance between service and, of course, most profitable scenarios. What we do see in the market, that a lot of companies are currently in stage 3. Most of them you have APO, so you're really capable of balancing out demand and supply in your supply chain. But you do want to grow to that next level and want to move to optimizing your supply chain and to get into more profitable scenarios. And that's where really the benefits of IBP will come along, and we will further explain how IBP can support you in going to stage 4 and maybe even in a long-term map, moving towards the 5th stage and really optimize your supply chain and orchestrate your business. So from APO to IBP, because that's of course a theme we would like to discuss today. APO is already from 1998, so it's quite some time ago. You see below, in 1998, the most popular phone we had was, for example, the Nokia 5510, which if you have an advanced version, probably you can use Snake, but that was it, and you can make phone calls and send text messages. So a lot has changed, of course, if you compare it to today, because in today we have iPhones, we have really advanced smartphones. Our computers are 20, maybe 30 times faster than it was. Maybe the iPhone can even already achieve more than your normal desktop could do in that time. Also, that would mean, of course, that supply chains are changing because of that, because the supply chain is not the same as it was in 1998 compared to these days. So the challenges we have are different challenges than what we had in the past. In 2007, APO converted to what they call SCM 2007 version 7.0. That was also the time that APO got his position in the market. So it took quite some time to get a grip on the market and to really explain the benefits of a solution to balance your demand and supply. Around 2012, SAP launched the Sales and Operation Planning, a cloud-based solution on the HANA platform. And it was really to bridge the gap between APO and S&OP, because S&OP is more than only to combine volume and value with each other. S&OP is also about finance, profitability, and in trying to include the different departments within your company. This was a starting point for what we have today, what we call IBP, so what we are going to discuss today. This grew. SNOP is still the baseline of IBP, but currently it's already expands with multiple modules, which we will discuss in a few seconds. But this is really the supply chain platform. As you see on the top, APO is currently phasing out in 2027. That doesn't mean that it's now obsolete. Still, a lot of companies are using APO to perform their planning, and IBP will take over this functionality, but has a different position in the market. So it's not a one-on-one replacement, but it's really a current way of looking at your supply chain and really trying to help you to be more profitable, to really move from the balance between demand and supply to move to intelligent business planning and to really combine your business, to integrate your sales, to integrate finance, and really optimize your supply chain by combining those. IBP has a continuous roadmap, so each quarter IBP will release a new version and an improved version. There's a big roadmap. We will touch a little bit on the roadmap, but we can, of course, always discuss more details. But every quarter, basically, you get a new release, new functionalities implemented, and IBP will grow by the quarter. So the digital supply chain planning. IBP is more than just a tool to balance demand and supply, but it's also an end-to-end process. So we are not just thinking about siloed processes for demand supply chain planning, but we are really integrating, and we have integration with, for example, S/4HANA, because of course your planning will have an impact on your production planning or also on your material requirements planning. So we have, for example, DDMRP, which is a new way of thinking, but also transportation management, for example. How can I optimize my transportation based on the plans I have? But also on the other side of your supply chain, the integration with your vendors, for example, with the SAP Ariba network. This can all be combined and will be a digital supply chain. So it's more than only balancing your supply chain. It's really thinking in an end-to-end process. And what makes it very important is that it's, of course, focusing on the customer experience. So the customer is central. And I think that's also a big difference between the supply chain we have in the past, where we really were thinking from the inside out from our company, how to deliver supply, while now we are on a customer focus. So we are really thinking from the outside in, the customer experience, but customers are also more demanding. We have more, for example, make to order specifically for the customers. The service levels must be high because the competition is always big within the market. So you have to be on top of your supply chain and really think about the end-to-end process in your digital supply chain and business planning. Walter, could you explain a little bit on the transition?
Like Jeroen already said, IBP is not replacing APO. So it means SAP has a complete new vision on planning and wants to create a complete new experience for the planner. So basically all the network related planning capabilities are managed in IBP, while the plan specific planning will happen in S/4HANA. As you can see, all the functionalities in APO, the major ones, are mapped to the new system landscape. But yeah, it's not a one-on-one replacement, and it's also a move from modules to building blocks. Like for example, in APO, you had your demand planning, which was using different master data than your supply network planning. Also, the demand planning and the supply planning were not completely integrated. For example, in demand planning, you manage your forecast on a customer level, and then you move it to supply network planning on a product level, and suddenly the planner doesn't know anymore which supply is meant for which customer. So you don't see the effect of your constraint plan on your markets. Another example is the alert monitor in APO. Basically, it was not one alert monitor. You had alerts on demand planning, you had alerts on supply planning, but you could not combine these data together. On the other side, in IBP, you can all of this integrate together. So in the control tower, you can really integrate your demand plan, your supply plan, and even data from other systems. And also in the IBP for sales and operations solution, you really see the connection between your forecast on customer level and you can and the supply on your resources. So if you go to the next slide, Jeroen. So as you saw, APO is replaced by IBP and S4. And at the moment, you have to schedule some jobs to send data from the one system to the other one. Now the roadmap of SAP is really to create a synchronized planning. And the goal is to finalize this by the end of next year. So basically, the goal is that you do your detailed scheduling in S4, but when you convert your planned orders to your production orders, it will be immediately visible in IBP and the respondent supply planning. The same for deployment. So you can do your deployment optimization in RNS, send it to transportation management, where you will do your load building, and again, integrate this data back to IBP. So this is really the thing that SAP is working on this year.
Great, thank you very much. So the next question is then, why IBP and why should we use IBP over APO? So why should we move to this new cloud-based tool? First of all, as discussed, there are different levels of planning. So we have our strategic planning where we create our budget for the next 1, maybe 2 years, but where we really focus on strategic balancing of demand and supply and trying to be able to do the rough planning for the next years to combine this with inventory optimization. So that's really business planning from a strategic level. This is on the long-term planning where you do need low frequency. It's more on an aggregated level, usually time-based level, for example, weeks, or in demand planning. A lot of cases we are planning in monthly levels. The next level is when we move more to the operations and more in the tactical level. So where we really are going to focus on sales and operation planning and the inventory optimization. So how can I optimize my inventory across my network? Work on your demand planning, and demand planning could be supported by statistical models. There are machine learning algorithms within the application to support you in this process, but also to segment your portfolio in the correct way that you can focus on what is really important. So which are my most profitable items and my most profitable customers, and really start working on exception-based management and focus on what is important to optimize my supply chain. From there, you can calculate your supply and allocation planning. And this will translate to the short-term horizon, so usually more in the daily buckets within your lead times. Demand sensing, it sounds like a demand planning module, but sensing is really on the short-term horizon. You try to adjust your forecast and adjust the input of your demand into your supply chain based on the actual situation. This to create a more stable plan and via that way a more stable reaction from your supply chain. You can also really give order priorities, so really on an order-based level, integrate with your ECC or S4HANA core system to optimize also the order portfolio based on available supply and capacity in your network. So how does IBP help? Well, most important, and that's why it's centric, is you have one operating plan. As before, you saw that supply chain was a lot of siloed information. There were usually multiple tools available, which could have different views on the reality. And what you would like to achieve is to get one operating plan that everybody is aligned and talking about the same numbers and the same information. And around that single plan, you have your supply chain planning, but also including your financial planning, because you want to grow to more profitable scenarios and situations. This supported by demand planning to really get a stable demand going into your supply chain. And of course, a big part is your product planning and your product lifecycle portfolio. IBP is supporting that via a couple of indicators. There is performance management, for example. So there are all kinds of KPI calculations standard in the model coming out of the box, supported by dashboards and KPI overviews that you can really steer on what is important and immediately analyze based on your portfolio, what is the situation within the supply chain and how you are performing across your full supply chain end to end. That's where the identification and resolution comes along. because you have a big portfolio, you have a complex and large supply chain, so you do want to focus on what is really important. And this, for example, the control tower, alert management, but also including different data from your end-to-end supply chain process within IBP to really get full visibility and see what is going on in your supply chain. An important part of that is also the what if and scenario planning, because you do want to be able to simulate what would happen if my demand would go higher or lower, or if I have capacity constraints, or if I would even change the transportation within my supply chain. So you do want that full visibility in your supply chain. You also want to integrate the financial data, because as said, it's more than just balancing demand and supply. It's also going to a more profitable scenario. And that's why you need financial information within your process to really be able to steer on what is important and to steer towards this more profitable scenario in your supply chain. So going back to an overview on IBP, there are several modules within IBP to support you and to help you leveraging this supply chain excellence in your end-to-end performance. What you do have is a scalable and flexible model. So you do want to combine supply, demand, and finance, but we know, as we have seen in the previous slide, that the world will change and even supply chains will never stand still. Products are changing, but also your business will be changing in the next year. So you do want to have a scalable model which fits your current business, but is also ready for any future changes you will have within your business. Next to that is, and as said before, is you would like to have real-time scenario planning. So I do want to simulate and see what would happen if demand, supply, or inventory targets will change, and what will be the impact on my supply chain, what will be the result towards my clients, and how profitable will I be. Of course, there's a seamless integration with S4HANA or ECC, so it's not obligated to have S4HANA, but as shown before, in the end state, it will be connected to the digital supply chain where, for example, if you phase out APO, a part of your planning will move to the executive part in the S4HANA system. For your end user, we have more intuitive interfaces. So we will work not with the old school SAP screens, but you will have, for example, Excel, which is your core interface. Everybody knows Excel, everybody can work with Excel. So you have the easiness of working with the Excel, but still controlled by a database and controlled by a system. We will jump into the details of the different parts of IBP quickly, and afterwards we will dive into a small demonstration on the capabilities of IBP. So first, sales and operational planning. So that's really to respond to your market expectation and get real-time information on your supply chain and your planning capabilities. So you do want to make this optimal plan, and you would want to drive to more profitable scenarios. You still want to balance demand and supply because you would need to have a vision on your supply chain, but you want to have increased possibilities, and that's, for example, making scenarios and versions possible. That I want to have different views on the truth and choose which version will fit my supply chain and what would be the impact of different scenarios. This can be done by consensus demand planning. So you want to have a good and stable demand plan. You can do your tactical supply chain planning, your rough cut capacity planning, and this is all included with financial information. This is supported, of course, by the version management. There is a workflow behind it, so you can really track the progress of your monthly or weekly sales and operation planning cycle, and you still have this flexible model. So it will fit your business today, but it's always ready to fit the business or your intentions for tomorrow. You have basic statistical forecast models. So if you really want to deep dive in machine learning and system learning, we will jump to demand planning. And the baseline is for sales and operation planning. It's a time-based planning. So you really work on a lowest level, on a time frame level. Walter.
Yeah. So the response and supply it can be used on strategic level, tactical, and operational level. So basically on all the time horizons in IBP. It's used to create a constrained supply plan or an unconstrained supply plan with the goal to optimize your profitability. So you can combine operational and financial planning together. Besides that, you can manage allocations and confirmations to reach an optimal customer service level. And you can also prioritize certain customers above other ones. So the important thing here is really that you have also the order-based integration. So you are working with the real sales orders, real production orders, and purchase orders coming from S4 or ECC. And you can use them as an input for your rough cut capacity planning together with the demand plan that you created in the IBP for demand or in SNOP, or you can incorporate from APO. It's basically using the same interface as SNOP. So you can have multiple scenarios, you can do what-if analysis, and additionally, you can have a look at the pegging. So you can really track a sales order through your supply chain and relate it to the corresponding production orders and purchase orders.
So then there are a couple of advanced modules. So what we previously discussed was the sales and operation planning, which is basically the basic level of IBP to perform time-based planning within your supply chain. The response and supply is really to do the order integration, and then you will move to a more operational level by including the real order and stock information in your calculations. Then we have a couple of advanced modules which can help you to grow to the next level in, for example, demand planning. So demand planning is really about to create and stabilize your demand plan for the midterm, but also for the short-term horizon. In the short-term horizon, the demand sensing module can help you smoothen the effect you would have on your order book, because we all know that a forecast is never 100% accurate. This demand sensing will try to stabilize this in the short-term horizon to send a more smooth signal through your supply chain. But on the long term as well, you would like have a good statistical calculation, because portfolios are getting bigger. You cannot focus on all your SKUs, and for some SKUs, the system could achieve a better result by, for example, statistical calculations. So this is really to lower the effect on your business, to make sure that the business can focus on what is important. And a big part of that is to segment your portfolio. So really to get a focus on what is important, what are my high running SKUs, and where do I need to focus and put my attention. And the other part of your portfolio, which is better predictable, could be managed, and in a lot of times better managed by the system by using statistical calculations. So this really will offload the workload through your demand planners so that they can focus on what is important, and via that way help you to steer towards more profitability. Walter.
Inventory optimization is something that was completely missing in APO. So it's completely new functionality in IBP, and it's used to reduce your inventory levels and at the same time to improve your customer service levels by using a multi-level inventory optimization algorithm. So it's really helping you to shorten your cycle to calculate your target inventories, and it's also reducing your production and inventory costs. So how does it work? It's looking at your demand uncertainty, it's looking at your supply uncertainty, and it's propagating these uncertainties throughout your entire supply chain, and then it's calculating an optimal stock level for each product. So for your finished goods, your semi-finished goods, your components, and also in every time bucket. So basically for every week, you can have a different safety stock. Again, using the same interface as the other modules. So you have the same alerts and the same Excel user interface.
Great, thank you. And then DDMRP, demand-driven MRP. Yes, most of you have heard of this new way of thinking and this other way of calculating. Sorry? Oh. So this is a new way. Last year we organized an event fully focused on this demand-driven MRP. So demand-driven MRP is another way of thinking. It's really about decoupling your network and then try to protect your flow based on simplified calculations of buffers. So it's more a pool-based mechanism that will change the way MRP is thinking and will move towards a more pool-based MRP run. So this is included within IBP. So IBP will support you by positioning, so defining where should you decouple your supply chain. It will help you to calculate what should be the buffers I have available on each location and on each level of my supply chain. And then it will help you to protect this, so to make sure that what will happen within your demand and supply is that you can always deliver your clients, and it will give you a focus on what is important at this moment. So based on priorities, it will give you a better view on potential issues you could have within your supply chain. DDMRP is fully integrated again with both S4HANA and ECC, and it can also change your MRP. So usually you're running a normal MRP within ECC or S4HANA. Using demand-driven MRP, you can let IBP calculate your stock and your buffer levels, send this information to your ECC or S4HANA, and then MRP will take over and will react in a more pool-based. And the envision is that this will leverage what they call nervousness you would normally have within your supply chain to a more stabilized flow throughout your supply chain. Control tower. Walter.
Yes. I lost audio, but I see that you can hear me now.
Yep.
So the control tower, it's basically used to have an end-to-end monitoring of the supply chain while analyzing the current and historical performance. So it's really something different than the alert monitor you had in APO. Alert monitor in APO, it's focusing on specific siloed alerts, while the control tower, it's really combining all the information in your supply chain together in different alerts. It's also possible to collaborate, to communicate and resolve issues by, for example, using SubJam, and to synchronize planning capabilities and link between the plan and operations. Yeah.
All right, so then finally, why IBP? So if we put all that together, most important is that you have a better user experience. So IBP can be controlled in two ways. First part will be via the web interface. So you can really input data via the web, but you have all the dashboard, the analytics available, the alerts to really focus on what is important in your supply chain. And that will give you the real-time insight in what is going on from the end to end in your supply chain. Then it's, of course, the control tower, as Walter just mentioned, is to put an overall control and to really integrate all the different parts of your supply chain. So including production, including transportation, and really get a view on what is going on and where do I need to react. And finally, of course, the users are mostly working in Excel. So this is a user experience. Everybody knows how to work with Excel. Everybody is capable of working with Excel. So it gives you the normal Excel functionalities. However, in this case, controlled via a database. So that gives the user an easy adoption within IBP. Then we'll move to a small flavor and a small demonstration of what IBP could bring and how the look and feel is. We will start off with a small part on inventory optimization in our demo, and then we will briefly show you how SNOP is taking over the calculations from the inventory optimization and how you can balance your demand and supply, including all the financial information. Walter.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you again. Sorry for the technical issues.
No worries.
So basically, we prepared a business case where we will show you what IBP can bring in addition to APO. So what's the current situation? Well, the pubs are closed, and our brewery at the moment can only produce bottles and cans for supermarkets. It's not producing any kegs anymore for the pubs. We also saw that 50% of the beer that we sold normally to pubs is now sold to supermarkets on top of their normal volume. So basically, this is really impacting the supply chain of our brewery. It's really using different packaging resources now, and it's also needing different packaging materials. So in the demo, we will have 2 service levels. So for pubs, we want to reach 99% service level because a pub without beer, it's not possible. We also need to have the beer available. And for supermarkets, we aim for a target service level of 90%. Then we're going to plan 3 potential scenarios. One is that the pub's in July, the other one in August, and the last one in September. So all the scenarios are positive, the total sales will go up, but the share of supermarkets will go down in the total. Yeah, if you go to the next slide. So this is basically our supply chain. We have 2 plants. So we start from the raw materials, where we will produce a semi-finished good, and then we will pack it in different packagings, in cans, in bottles, and in kegs. And then from the plant, we will send it to the distribution center. And from there, we deliver the supermarkets and we deliver the pubs. Okay. So we have a basic process flow. So we start with demand planning, and we will not show it in the system. We will already start with the consensus demand plan that was made in IBP. We cannot show everything together today, so that's why we will focus on the inventory optimization part, where we will calculate the different uncertainties on demand side and supply side, and we will calculate the safety stocks, and we will estimate, okay, how much sales are we losing because we cannot deliver 100%. Then the inventory optimization output is the safety stock, and this will be an input in the supply planning part, where we will create a constrained or an unconstrained supply plan and do a financial optimization. So comparing the process in APO, like I told you, in APO, you did not have this functionality. So you had to use an external third-party inventory tool to calculate your safety stocks. So basically, you were downloading master data from APO, the production data structures, the product master, the transportation lanes, the forecast into CSV files. You would upload those in a third-party tool. You would add some additional data because all the parameters you need in this tool are not available in APO. And basically, the output of this black box would be a safety stock, a fixed safety stock per material, which you would upload again in the material master, and then interface to APO, where it will be your safety stock for the coming months. You go to the next slide. We will see that in IBP, it's totally different and it's integrated. So we start with master data. We start by setting target service levels, like we did 99% for the pubs, 90% for the supermarkets. We load the bill of materials, the quota arrangements, the lot sizes, the lead times. We maintain inventory policies. Next to the master data, we incorporate transactional data. So we use the forecast made by the demand planner, but we will also gather the historical production orders, stock transport orders, historic sales, purchase orders from ECC. And basically, based on this, we will calculate the forecast error. So we compare the historic forecast with historic sales, but we also will calculate the lead time variance. So for production, transportation, and purchasing. All of this will be an input for the standard algorithm in APO. And the output of this algorithm will be a safety stock, not only in quantity, but also in value, as you can see on the dashboard below. And also an explanation of the calculation. So on the right view, you can see safety stock for bottles, cans, and kegs. And you can see then how much was due to the target service level, how much was due to the supply uncertainty. Okay. You can go to the previous slide, Jeroen. Yeah, next. Just only the top one. So if you go to the next slide, but you only show, yeah, this. Okay, thank you. So basically, this is an example of a non-integrated inventory planning process where we will plan the safety stock in a plant and a distribution center separately. So let's imagine we have our supermarkets and we need 100 units. If we apply a target service level of 90%, we would need 90 units in our distribution center. If we would go for a classical approach and not a multi-level approach, we would again calculate a service level for our plant, also 90%, and there our safety stock would be, our total stock would be 81 units. So actually in this scenario, the total stock in the plant and the distribution center would be 171 units. Now in IBP, we will use the multi-stage inventory planning, and this has the following advantage. Advantage is that it will plan across your network. So it will look at your entire network, and basically what it will do, it will put a higher buffer in your distribution center. So we have the same target service level of 90%, but for example, the optimizer will put 95 units in the distribution center. And by doing this, you only need a 70% service level between your plant and your DC. So based on that, you only need 67 units in your plant. So basically, your total stock will drop from 171 units to 162 units due to this multi-stage approach. So the numbers are simplified, but it's really to make it clear how it will work. Okay.
Great.
I think then it's time that I show you in the system. So I will make myself presenter.
Yep.
Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so here we are running out of time, so I will go quickly. So basically, you have here an Excel, but with an additional tab, SAP IBP, where you can have access to your IBP data. So I will open my favorite. Here we go. So we start here from a demand plan. So the demand plan has already been done, and we have a demand plan in 3 different versions. So we see that if we filter on the pubs, we have an upside version where the sales in kikes in pubs will start in July, in the base version in August, and in the downside version in September. Now this looks really simple, but if you think back about APO, in APO you have like 100 transactions, and what's the first thing you have to put in the selection screens? It's your planning version. So basically in APO, it's not possible to compare different versions on the same screen. So this is already a very strong advantage of IBP. The other advantage is that you can easily change your planning view. So you can go here to edit data. You can change your time buckets from months to weeks. You can say, I don't want to have a look at product family, I want to look at product level. And for example, you can add your sales figures also to the screen. On top, you can say, I don't want to see my quantities in pieces, I want to see it in liters. Okay. Everything is updated. So it's really much more user-friendly than an APO. So what's the first step in the inventory process? We look at the sales history. So here we see if we filter on the pubs, and maybe let me make this smaller so that this becomes bigger. We see indeed that in week 14, the pubs closed and the sales dropped. And we can see here our forecast errors. very easy to also change data. So for example, I see here, okay, in week 14, I still had a forecast. So I didn't have sales. My demand planner could not update the forecast on time. So what I can do is I can remove this because this is not relevant for the future. I can save my data. And I can recalculate my forecast error. I don't know why it's not. Okay, some issue. I will just continue then. Sorry about that. And basically, we can have a look at a production history. Also, we have calculated our uncertainty of production lead times. And basically, we really see for the bottles, for example, in these weeks, the lead times increased because suddenly we had to produce bottles instead of kegs. And we had issues with the supplier of bottles, and we had some longer lead times because we had to stop production. The same is true for the transportation. You have a look at historic transportation with the errors, and the same for the purchasing. So after reviewing these errors, we can run our inventory optimization. Voila, now it's working. And we can do it in multiple versions. And we can run it, and then based on our forecast, or demand uncertainty and or supply uncertainty, the system will calculate the different forecasts. It was a bit fast, but we also are writing a blog which we will publish next week, where you can see in more detail. But I have to go fast now because I'm running out of time. So let's just have a look at the outcome of our inventory optimization. So I'm now in the web dashboard of IBP, where I look at my dashboard. And basically, I can see a comparison between my safety stock value in my upside scenario and in my base scenario. So if I enlarge this, you really see, okay, in my upside scenario, my safety stock on kegs goes up because, yeah, pubs open again, and the safety stock on bottles and cans will go down. What I really want to emphasize here is that we have a safety stock per week. So basically in APO, you had one safety stock for the entire horizon. So for example, in APO, you would have for your product family cans, safety stock of 56,000. While in IBP, it varies per week. So all this difference between the straight line and this line, it's all value that in APO you would be putting in your stock, which now with IBP you can invest in other things which are more important. Then you can have some other views. You have your safety stock origin. So here you see for the kegs which have a higher target service level, most of my safety stock is due to this, the demand uncertainty. And you can have a view on your lost sales. So here also you see for the bottles and the cans, we have a 90% service level, which also means you will have quite some high loss of sales because you are not delivering 100%. While for the kegs, you have the 99% service level, and you consequently have a low number of lost sales. Okay, there's many things I want to show you, but due to lack of time, I will give the word back to Jeroen.
Yep. Yes, thank you. I will quickly dive to my screen. So indeed, this is just a flavor on what is possible. In the future, we will launch more McAdemy sessions where we will really perform deep dives. Today, we would just like to give you a flavor on the visibility and what the possibilities are within IBP. So the output of the inventory optimization is, of course, input in your SNOP. And also for SNOP, you can create different graphical views. Let's jump, for example, based on that and based on my demand plan, I could now see already that my capacity on my packing line and my assembly line is running over my capacity because I did run an unconstrained planning view based on the information we have. But you don't want to deep dive because in where are the issues in my supply chain, but you want the system to help. So basically on this 120, I also would like to see from an alert point of view, what is wrong in my supply chain? And these alerts can be created specifically for your users. So it could be on the role you have within your supply chain and also on your part of your portfolio. In this case, I can see that I have a capacity overload in this situation, and that 2 of my production lines in certain weeks will now run over my available capacity. So this means I need to react within my supply chain. Then I could switch to my Excel and view my supply chain planning. So the same Excel look and feel. And you see below that I filtered now on the sport bars and a couple of other bars to see how the demand will flow to my supply chain. In the bottom section, you will see that you can really follow demand from your customer demand via transportation all the way to production. Let's for now jump to the capacity overview. And in my capacity board, I could see already what is the impact and for the different versions. So I also run my SNOP for this upside, downside, and baseline version. And in my baseline version, I highlighted that in this week, I do have a constraint that my capacity will flow over. I do see in this example that I have available capacity on another location, so I could easily switch and offload a part of my production to another location. And via this dashboarding, via these alerts, I'm capable to dive into where are the issues in my supply chain and then react with my normal SNOP process on those disruptions. What you would see also is finally is that you can combine volume and value. So what I see is for these different versions I've calculated, I could see what would be my projected stock for each of those versions on my location, how many periods I would cover, and also from a financial point of view. So it's really combining the volume and the value with each other. Same thing will count from customer demand point of view. So I do see my customer demand of my different versions, and for each version I would see what would be the gross profit. I can input different kinds of costs, and then I could calculate what would be my operating profit based on those different scenarios. I did run an unconstrained version, but if I would run an optimizer or a constrained variant, I could also easily track what is the total receipts I get versus my demand, and also create alerts based on that to really focus on what is important. This is just a high-level flavor of what is possible in IBP. As said, we will do deep dive sessions, so you can expect more McAdemies where we will really go into the nitty-gritty details of the solution. But what's the reason to go for IBP? Well, you have a couple of immediate wins, and the immediate win is that you have a single source of truth, and you will combine your volume and value, so everybody is talking about the same numbers, the same information. You enable this scenario and what if planning, so I can easily create a baseline, an upside, a downside variant, and calculate what will be the impact from a supply chain, but also from financial point of view. What we see in the long term is that if you implement IBP, SNOP, or inventory optimization, or responsive supply, you can achieve revenue growth because you can easily steer on what is important and focus on the customer point of view. You have, via this inventory optimization, a real reduction in your inventory, so that will give you a benefit of a better cash flow and lower inventory levels based on what is really necessary in your supply chain. You will also achieve reductions of stock out, so your service level automatically will improve. And of course, you will improve your sales forecast accuracy and via that way stabilize your entire supply chain. So those are improvements we do see at clients within the markets and which you can achieve using IBP and really working on an end-to-end supply chain planning process. So how can we help with that? So we do believe that we have our IBP system, we have best practices on how to approach an IBP project, and we have a rapid implementation. And we can combine this with a new service which we call IBP as a service. And what we will do is we will create via a workshop what is important. So where are your constraints? What would you like to focus on? Is it demand? Is it supply? Is it capacity planning? We have a jump start with a good baseline, and then we can give you supply chain visibility within a couple of weeks based on best practices we have available. And from that point on, we can further deploy and improve the solution on a weekly cycle. We can combine that with what we call planning as a service, because we do believe we can achieve more than just an implementation partner. We also believe that we can support with the running of the system, because we do have the information or we do have the capabilities from a technical point of view, but we also have the functional knowledge. And then together with you as a company, we could run the system together and simulate the assumptions based on different kind of scenarios and jointly analyze the results. And from that point, try to respond on disruptions within your supply chain. And if necessary, then start over again by maybe reconfiguring, retailoring the system. And if we perform that in weekly cycles, we believe that within a couple of weeks, we give visibility and we have continuous improvements in each and every cycle. So then finally, why McCoy and why intelligent planning? So why IBP? I think that is clear. It could help you to steer to more profitable situations, really get a grip on your supply chain from volume, but also from a financial point of view, and really drive to more optimal service levels, and via that way, a better revenue and a better supply chain performance. Why McCoy? Well, if you have seen previous McAdemies of ours, we are 100% top 100, so we go for the perfect score. We approach this as a team, so we will do this jointly. We are experienced in both IBP and APO, so we can really support you in the possible transition. We combine our technical knowledge with our functional supply chain knowledge. We have a strong focus and really clear vision on how to integrate this with your core systems and with your other systems. And we do have our own proof of concept system, so we can really give a jump start via our best practices. That in a nutshell. Jan, would you like to close up with a couple of words from your side?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jeroen. And just to make sure that everybody that has asked a question, we have consolidated them into the question box. But as we have 2 minutes left, I'm not sure if there's any room to answer them publicly. So we'll make sure that the team comes back to you through email or phone call to discuss your question with you. I would really like to thank Jeroen and Walter for their great inspirational presentation today. We've seen the difference between IBP as the new intelligent planning platform and APO. And we have also seen, and that's very important, that it's more than just implementing a tool. It's about thinking about the complete process, the data, and the people around it, to make sure that you can make money with intelligent planning by saving costs on inventory, but also to increase your revenue as a company. I think that's a very important point to remember. And in the end, we have seen our planning as a service proposition. Please make sure if you're interested that you reach out to me or Jeroen or Walter, because we have a very interesting offer at the moment where we can get your data into a system and start planning with your data immediately without a big investment up front. So if you're interested, please reach out to the team. And yeah, to finalize, I would really like to thank you for attending this webinar. And if you like to have more information or a specific demo for your company, please contact us through the email or through the phone, and we will obviously send the slides and the replay of this webinar to you afterwards. So thank you very much. Jeroen, do you want to end the session right now, or do you want to take some questions?
Maybe you could do one quick question in a minute, if there's.
Yeah, maybe I can select one that is interesting to answer for the complete group, and you can answer that, I'm sure. Are there any clients out there, customers out there that are already running IBP successfully?
Yes, there are several clients and even in different modules. So we do have clients running the inventory optimization successful. We are working with response and supply, so the order integration, but also with S&OP and demand planning. So we do have different clients, different cases. So if people are interested or really would like a working example, indeed do not hesitate to contact us and we can provide more information on each of those modules.
Thank you very much. So that's the end of this webinar. I want to invite you to register yourself for the next one next week. The next McAdemy at Home session will be about S/4HANA and Enterprise Resource Model. So if you're interested, please have a look at our website. And as said, we will share the video of this one and the slides with you afterwards. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Goodbye.